when we talk about how far Nigeria has progressed, I think it would also be fair to talk about how far we could not progress because of the manner in which we came together. The North was the hegemonic group. It had a virtual veto over the two southern states. A veto in the sense that in terms of size, it was virtually 3 times bigger than the two southern regions. And therefore, it meant whoever was going to run Nigeria was going to be linking the North and one of the two southern regions. The NCNC and the Action Group, the two southern states, could not work together. The NCNC and the NPC, the Northern People's Congress, had reached an agreement by 1958 as to how they would come together. But they could not, properly speaking, form a government until they had discussed how to share Nigeria. And the decision they reached, I keep saying this, the decision they reached was to give virtually all the big jobs that will be vacated by colonialists to one of the political parties, because in their constituency, that is to say in the Eastern constituency, they had a lot of educated people who could fill the jobs. The North made the concession, but that was also why Zik, whose party really ought to have produced the prime minister because of the number of seats and votes they got, had conceded that the North would produce the prime minister, and the leader, the NCNC, would produce a ceremonial president. That changed the chemistry of the Nigerian nation. But beyond that was this, that the regions that needed to be created were also well known from the very beginning. It was not only the 3 regions. All those who were campaigning for self-governorship in the North, in the East, and in the West were largely prevented from doing so. By the time the Civil War forced us to get to that point, we still refused to take the right decision. Why? Because by 1959-1960, the division of the Nigerian state began with 1, all the military installations going to one region, all the railway extensions going to one region, the Kainji Dam going to one region, the iron and steel industry going to one region, because of that share out that I spoke of at the beginning. Because all the big jobs, the big railway men were from the East. The big directors were from the East. Even in the military, the officer corps was commanded by the East. It is usually described as a state. I mean, there was a country, Chinua Achebe talked very approvingly of the domination of the East at that time. But that is actually the point. Although they had all the big officers in these organizations, the ground on which all of them functioned lay where the veto holder was. And that veto holder managed to have enough soldiers to keep a propaganda of arms in place that made it impossible for any changes to take place. Even if you had a conference today, there is bound to be a veto holder input that will change it. How to change it has been the central issue of Nigeria. How do you restructure in the face of a veto holder who would always intervene to make sure that you don't get a change?
There are Southerners who have been exercising veto power in the course of Nigerian history.
I will explain
so
this.
it's not as if it's only in the North.
I will explain
this hegemony.
The average educated Nigerian, in order to be shown as a liberal, very freedom-loving, democratic person, is always trying to be nice to the North. There is no reason to be nice to the North. They are our brothers, and we have a right to fight over the issues that we need to change. It is no longer right to be nice to the North, because in this particular case, I give you a very good example now. You have a governor who tells you that all the non-Nigerian Fulanis must be catered for by the Nigerian state, and actually argues against the respect for international boundaries, argues against national policies on the grounds that one ethnic group, which just happened to be the ethnic group with which the British worked out an alliance, should permanently remain a freeholder, moving across all boundaries, respecting no laws and things of that nature. If you are talking about all Nigerians having a right, that is a claim to a divine right that you are not allowed to touch unless you belong to that ethnic fraction in Nigeria. If that ethnic fraction had the means to create a nation, they would have created one by now. The truth is that between the Fulani and the Hausa, there is a very badly structured sense of nationality. The way people talk about it, those who know, they will say a Pulo is a Pulo and a Kado is a Kado. It means that although they speak the same language, they have not managed to create a sense of nationality. And they have imposed that in every other part of Nigeria and in every Nigerian conference and situation. We just don't need, we don't have to be over-liberal. Let us confront the issues. When you allow a small minority to control a majority, as I once said in this station, they can only rule by falsehood and violence. Well, and that is, I have just one thing to point out properly. Do you know that the Gbagi of Nigeria, the Gwari, they are divided between 6 different states and have never been allowed to come together to form a state, whereas they are contiguous. But I'll tell you something. When you now have a governor, in fact 2 governors, Bauchi and Kebbi, when you now have 2 governors insisting that an ethnic group that does not even belong to Nigeria should be given special rights in Nigeria, and you find that those who are already in Nigeria, like the Gwari and many other ethnic groups, I will come to that, they are not even allowed to come together as an ethnic group. You will know that the source of the crisis is very strong. The agitation for state creation and for changing the boundaries of the various states began as early as 1904. The Ilorin people were already demanding to join their kith and kin in the western region. It never happened.